Okay. Basically, in a nutshell, Angry Pug Art, yay. In the first couple of blogs or sessions or classes or whatever the hell we're calling it, I think we're going to work with this, pen and ink. Why? Because I like pen and ink. And there's not expensive things you need. You need paper. Computer paper works. It's white. Sharpie type pens. Well, okay, we can't say that brand probably because this will be on the internet and everything. So it's that Sharp Paw brand, but I don't like them anyway. They suck. I don't know what brand this is. I don't know where it came from. All I know is it's got a really cool tip to it. Sharp, and it holds its point. Anyways, what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to basically talk about tools. Guys, you should know your tools. You should know what you're using. Talk about your paper that you're going to be drawing on. Masonite board with paint on it. Some other weird things we're going to be talking about too. 2. Instruments of death and destruction. That's these pens. I'll go over a couple different pens, some inks, some ideas. It's like this pen here. I don't know what it is either, but it's a ball pointy type pen. I think they call it a smooth flow or something. That's got gook in there. Anyways, I like the way it flows out of the pen. It works. Tools. These are cool. It works. It's nice. Okay, you can start getting into the expensive things, rapidographs and all that great stuff that costs you $8 million. Well, I ain't got $8 million. I'm a starving artist. Okay, so I use crap that I get at Wally World. Okay, it works just fine. Now, the big difference between student brand, professional brand, is this: storage. After a while, the acid in the paper will bleed through and work with the inks and actually fade the inks a bit. That's the big whoop. So if you want to make it so it's eternal and it's going to last forever and not get knocked out by a nuclear holocaust, use the professional stuff. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. If you're poor, cheap like me, you know what? Use these pens. These pens are cheaper. They're inexpensive. But the thing is once you get your piece done, you scan it into the computer. You're using it. I do graphic arts, okay? So I work with different industries and things like that where I'm making banners and I'm doing people's logos. So it all gets scanned to the computer anyway. So I get my fancy little piece of artwork. I do it on, when I'm done with it, it's like, yeah, okay, I throw it in a drawer. If not, the dog eats it. Big deal. Don't care. Point is how do you want to store the stuff? Figure out how you want it. You want to last forever, get the more expensive stuff. If you're just doodling and you're going to put it in the computer or using it for sketching or something like that, or, this stuff does even last long. They're idiots out there. They're always telling you, oh, yeah, it doesn't last long. I had a professor, one of the guys was telling me, never use a ballpoint pen. I never understood that. Why? Why don't you use a ballpoint pen? Ballpoint pen works. It comes out. You learn how to do it. There's artists now that are doing this beautiful work with these ballpoint pen things nowadays. You get nice gradation and shades and everything like that. Look at that. It's great. It's beautiful. I think back in the day, they didn't want you using it because there's a reflectivity inside the ink that when we had Xerox machines, old-timey time ago, and when you made a copy, it would reflect off of the ink. I don't know if you can see that. You can kind of get a reflective off of that. It would reflect off the ink back into the machine, and you wouldn't get a really good photostat copy. But things have changed. So you know what? Ballpoint pen. But you know what? If you're going to use it, at least get black ink because it looks better. Unless you're using colors. Then again, there's another artist. Dude, whatever. If it's cheap, use it. Ballpoint pen's another one. Pencil's hard to show on this one, but pencil's a good starting sketch. I'm not a big pencil fan except when I'm starting my projects because it's lightweight. I can erase it. It's not permanent. I can put my marks down there where everything's going to stay, and all that great fun stuff. So I know where everything is listed. That way, when I start my little drawings and my little sketches and my little doodle-ma-chiggerma things here, you know what? I know where to draw, and it can all be freaking marked in and then erased after the fact. All right, I'm gonna go back in, rework it with this pen here because I like it because it has a finer line quality to it. But We're also going to start talk about different styles or techniques. Techniques are important. Why? Because I'm using a technique right now. I'm using cross-hatching. What does cross-hatching do? Cross-hatching enables me to put shadows using solid black lines by crossing them different directions. It creates cross-hatching shadows because technically, if you really want to get into drawing, you're not supposed to be using any lines to define your picture. You should actually be using shadows to define where the boundaries of your picture are, because if you look at anything in real life, it doesn't have lines unless you're looking at a coloring book. Then I'm lying then. But use shadows, and that's how you start drawing things. And so what we'll do is we'll teach you different techniques. I like cross-hatching, one of my favorite techniques. I got various artists, a lot of comic book influence on me, I guess. Got a couple other various artists that, I don't know, I just friended them on Facebook. I thought it was awesome. I'm like my childhood artist that I grew up with, I'm now a friend with. He even responded to me. Cool. It's funny though, the more you get to know them, you realize they're nutcases just like yourself. Okay, so basically this is cross-hatching. And another form that we'll probably get into is just regular hatching. You know, and hatching, that's where you see they look like those old-timey photos and stuff. All the lines go the same direction. Now, besides this pin, you get a crow quill pin. This is another tool that I will be discussing and going over. The crow quill pin, the tips kind of have, you know, you always see them. That's the typical pin. You always see that, you know, they got like a feather on them in the old-time movies. And they kind of look like that. Yeah, that's called a nib. In here is the well for the nib. They're usually made out of some type of metal, brass or something look like that. They'll stick into people if you stab them with them. Anyways, those are crow quill pins. Nice thing about crow quills is you can get the same effect with the tip here. Is with the crow quill you can get fat lines and thin lines just by pushing and pulling and putting a little more emphasis on the tips. That's all fine and dandy. But, you know what? Those are expensive. These things are cheap. The other problem about these things is you got to dip them in their freaking ink things. And, you know, if you're like me, you'll forget about something and you'll knock it over and then you get ink all over your project you just spent 8 million hours on. And then you got to start over again, and that just kind of sucks. So, cross-hatching, hatching. Usually these type of lines for the hatching. Another one is basically stippling. This is complete madness. Okay? I know people who do stippling. They like stippling. Stippling's their favorite type of artwork. These people creep me the hell out. Why? Because they're fucking nuts. Oops, I shouldn't swear that bad. We'll bleep it out. Fix that in post, okay? Anyways, this is called stippling. Stippling is basically just making dots again and again and again and again and again. Now you see why I call it madness. And you create shading with it. We'll do some of that. I'll get a better pin for that. And that's the first thing we're going to discuss on this little blog here. Is we're going to go through different pen and ink techniques using cheap, inexpensive pens and papers and things that you can pick up at Wally World and other, you know, cheap little dollar store places. But it doesn't take a lot of expensive tools to be an artist. I'm always blown away by these street artists whenever you run across them. But you know what? It's a start. We'll get you started. And then I'll also introduce you to some of the more expensive tools, like rapidographs. These things are great. They're pretty. They're a pain in the butt to use because once they start clogging up, then you got to get the little cleaning stuff, and it's just a real bugger. Anyways, there you have it. Angry Pug Arts. We'll see you soon.